Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're literally dismantling the illusion of competence. We're getting into some pretty brutal psychological truths about how our own brains deceive us, like every single day. If you've ever sat in a meeting and wondered why the loudest, most confident person in the room is somehow the one who knows the absolute least, well, you're definitely in the right place. Let's get right into it.
Okay, so I want to kick things off with a question that kind of holds a mirror up to all of us. Are you actually as smart as you think you are? I know, it's a little confrontational, but psychology shows us time and time again that overconfidence is usually just a mask for a much more dangerous reality. You see, we're basically wired to believe that someone's confidence is a direct reflection of their true competence. We just naturally assume that a loud, super certain person must absolutely know what they're talking about, right? But the hard truth is exactly the opposite. Having a limited understanding actually creates this bizarre illusion of clarity, and it blocks any real growth. Basically, the lower your actual ability in a subject, the less equipped your brain is to even recognize its own flaws. It's like a cognitive blind spot.
And that brings us to the whole point of today's explainer, the infamous Dunning-Kruger effect. It's a notorious cognitive bias, basically a psychological trap where folks with low ability massively overestimate their skills. Why does this happen? Simply because they lack the exact self-awareness needed to recognize their own knowledge gaps. You literally don't know enough to realize just how much you don't know. So, to help us spot this, either out in the wild or, gulp, in ourselves, we're going to look at 5 brutal signs that you might be stuck in this trap.
The absolute first major red flag we see, extreme certainty.
There's a massive contrast in how people handle complex, multi-layered topics. Highly intelligent people, they're constantly second-guessing their conclusions. They practice what psychologists call intellectual humility. But on the flip side, someone trapped in the Dunning-Kruger mindset will speak on those exact same complicated issues with total unwavering confidence. They literally cannot see the underlying complexity, so they just mistake their super narrow view for the absolute total truth.
So, the really crucial takeaway here is this. Genuine intelligence is perfectly comfortable saying, you know what, I don't know yet. If you're never unsure, if you never hit pause to question your gut assumptions, you aren't actually being decisive. You're just being blind to the sheer complexity of the world around you.
Moving right along, the second big indicator really comes down to your curiosity, or rather, the sudden disappearance of it.
Look, curiosity is the engine of intelligence. It's what drives us forward. But inside the Dunning-Kruger loop, that engine completely stalls out. It gets replaced by this trap of stagnation. People stuck here almost never ask why or how, and the reason is kind of sad. Their ego actually feels deeply threatened by new ideas, so they stick strictly to what's comfortable, just to totally avoid the mental heavy lifting required to look beneath the surface.
The profound realization here is that the exact moment you tell yourself you already know enough, you've effectively shut off your brain's ability to expand. Intelligence isn't a final destination where you just arrive and unpack your bags. It's a continuous, driving hunger for understanding.
Now, that brings us to the third sign, which is all about what happens when reality shifts and someone's beliefs are actively challenged. Think about what happens when hard evidence actively proves that an original stance is completely flawed. People caught in the trap suffer from what's called cognitive rigidity. They will violently defend totally broken stances because to them, changing their mind feels like a complete ego collapse. They view admitting they were wrong as a massive weakness. Smarter individuals, though, they champion adaptability. They actually like updating their beliefs when new evidence comes to light.
It's so vital to remember this. Refusing to adapt isn't some tough show of strength. It's not standing your ground. Actually, scratch that. It's worse. It's actively staying stuck in a mental prison of your own making. It is the ultimate limitation you can put on your own mind.
And this rigidity directly fuels our fourth sign, a dangerous habit of oversimplification.
Psychologists call this shallow processing. The world is incredibly messy and complex, right? But individuals stuck in the Dunning-Kruger trap actively reduce all that complexity down to simple little slogans and absolute answers. They rely heavily on what they call common sense to explain things that actually require a ton of deep nuance. Their entire world shrinks simply because their thinking is just too small to handle the multi-layered truth of the situation.
And finally, the fifth sign, which honestly holds the toughest mirror up to our daily behaviors.
When things go wrong, someone deep in the trap never ever looks inward. They rely on an external locus of control. That basically means they attribute every single failure to the system, their boss, society at large, you name it. They completely avoid the hard metacognitive work of analyzing their own behavior. Why? Because true self-awareness requires immense effort. It's just so much easier to point the finger and blame everyone else.
So the big takeaway for this final sign is that accountability is genuinely a quiet power. If you lack self-reflection and personal accountability, you are absolutely guaranteeing, 100%, that your thinking will never, ever evolve.
Okay, deep breath. If any of those signs hit a little too close to home just now, don't freak out. There is some really good news here. The Dunning-Kruger trap is not some permanent, unchangeable state. It's really just a pattern of thinking. And the beautiful thing is, we can intentionally rewire our brains to escape it.
When you actually map out the psychological causes keeping us stuck, the cures become super obvious. Notice the pattern here. Blind certainty, that's cured by practicing intellectual humility. A threatened ego, that requires you to force yourself to ask why and how. Breaking out of this trap demands that you trade in that shallow, rigid blame game for deep nuance and genuine self-reflection.
Escaping this illusion helps build what we call the marks of real intelligence. It requires you to strive for absolute clarity, to remain highly adaptable, and, maybe hardest of all, to have the sheer courage to admit when you're just plain wrong. You've got to push past those basic, surface-level assumptions, step willingly into the discomfort of critical thinking, and really embrace metacognition. Literally, you need to start thinking about how you think.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, undeniable question. The very next time you feel absolutely 100% unwaveringly certain about something, ask yourself, are you protecting your ego or are you protecting your potential? Because the choice of how you think and ultimately how you grow is entirely up to you.